Behind the Middle Belt killings is Caliphate ethnic cleansing. Behind Niger Delta agitation is Caliphate seizure of oil and gas. Behind Biafra and Odua agitation, Caliphate imposed unitary Nigeria. Behind the Caliphate itself is the rogue 1999 Constitution. Election is Caliphate's push to retain the 1999 fraud. Nigerians, say no to any further election in the country. Let's take down the 1999 Constitution and save our people and our land.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's joint Nina's Town Hall meeting on Clubhouse. I'm excited to have you all join us. Today, we'll be exploring the British amalgamation of 1914, 1967 to 1970 Gowon's genocidal war, 1979 and 1999 Constitution unified Nigeria but did not unite Nigeria. A brief synopsis of today's topic. Nigeria's union to unity has been elusive and marred by significant events that have shaped the country's history. The British amalgamation of Nigeria in 1914 brought together over 250 distinct ethnic groups under one entity, laying the groundwork for future conflicts as we see today. The 1967 to 97 Gowon's genocidal war, or civil war as some may call it, also known as the Biafran War, was sparked by ethnic tensions and dispute over oil revenues. Today, what they call resource control, agitation for resource control. The Igbo from the eastern region and their neighbors, the Ijaws, the Efik. The Ijaws are now in Bayelsa State, the Efik, the Ibibio, the Anang, Akwa Ibom, and Cross River States, sought independence but were met with force by the Nigerian government force under the genocide general Yakubu Gowon. This devastating conflict resulted in over 100,000 battle deaths and up to 5 million civilian deaths, mostly from starvation. The Ijaw people's agitation for resource control, a root cause of the 1967-1970 Biafran War, persists to this day, underscoring Nigerians' enduring struggle for resource justice and sovereignty. Historical marginalization and exploitation have led to demands for resource control. Groups like the Movement for the Survival of the Ogoni People, MOSOP, and the Ijaw Youth Council, IYC, continue to advocate for resource control. And now over to the Constitution, 1979 and 1999 Constitution. Nigeria's constitutional journey has been quite disorderly. The 1979 Constitution was a victory charter after the devastating genocidal war or Biafran War of 1967 to 1970. The 1979 Constitution was supposed to usher in democracy. Instead, it was marred by a series of military dictatorships. The 1999 Constitution, born from Abdul Salami's Decree 24, has only added to the tensions. Many indigenous peoples of Nigeria reject the fraudulently imposed 1999 Constitution. The search for a unified Nigeria continues, and the country's unity remains elusive. Nevertheless, the Nina's movement has been vocal about dismantling the illegitimately imposed unitary constitution and reworking the constitutional foundation of the Union for a more inclusive and equitable framework. Thank you. In the next 8 minutes, we'll be listening to a Nina's broadcast entitled Crash of 1999 Constitution is End of Unitary Nigeria, Sovereignty. Next. Thank you for listening.
And so it brings us to where the objective of the force majeure to knock down this constitution and end the stupid union of debt that comes with it has been achieved. Where we go next is rallying those who have been locked into that prison they call Nigeria. Whether it's the Yoruba that want Odua Republic or the Igbo that or the East that want the Biafra Republic, whatever it is, or the Niger Delta that want the return to controlling, to owning and controlling their resources, or the middle belt that is without defense and help for being slaughtered in their own ancestral space. Everything you look for, every change you look for, or the young people that want to see a better country, that say they want to take back their country. Young people, this is who took your country. Those who are rallying you to take back your country, it is by taking down this constitution that you are able to take back your country. Every other thing you are doing is a product of ignorance or dishonesty on the part of the people leading you to say, oh, let's go and replace them in government house. It's not the people in government house that took your country. It is the constitution that took your country and handed to them in the manner they are managing it. The constitution mandated the corruption you see and cited the sections to you. They don't owe you obligation. They have the statement to the treasury. Go and take section 81 and 82. Ask the lawyers you know, especially the ones that go to run their mouth on TV. Ask them whether the president does not have statement to the treasury. And the governors in section 171, 122. Ask them whether under section 308, the kind of immunity we have there. So they don't owe you obligation in section 6C. They have the spare key to the treasury in section 81, 82 for president, 121, 122 for governor. They all have immunity. You can't question them in all the 8 years they might be in office. They don't want. So what country are you taking back? You are slaves in that. You are slaves in that country. The slave have no rights, human rights, even right to life. You don't have any right at all under this constitution. So to take back your country is to take down this constitution. Anybody who is rallying you to come, let us go to government house so that the PDP will replace APC or Labour Party replace PDP, they are lying to you. We challenge them, get this video, bring them to answer to it. If they dare, if they think they have answers, let us have a debate. Let us have a debate. The media have been pretending they do not understand what is being discussed. We will not say any more thing to you. But when the flood will come, it will carry everybody, including the media that is pretending around this subject matter. Every day you tune the TV, they are discussing inanities, inconsequentials. Who has read more? Who has stolen what? You leave the robbery gang intact. And you're coming to entertain me with the story of another goat that was stolen. Yesterday you discussed chicken that is stolen. Today you bring goat. Next day they say cow is stolen. But you do not want to partake in the discussion about the robbery gang that we are saying. Let us dismantle this robbery gang. Nigeria is a criminal enterprise. Flowing from. And so, if the media is not prepared to join that discussion, if Labour Congress is not prepared to join that discussion, then you have chosen to die in your misery. Those planning revolution, the revolution is to join in saying we cannot continue in a constitution that render us slaves in our homeland. If you are not doing that, ignorance, dishonest, or both, That brings me to what shall we do now that we have defeated this constitution? Sooner than you can imagine. In fact, we're looking at this first quarter, which will end at the close of March. We did announce in December of 2023 that by the time the first quarter is winding down, we'll be inviting Ninas will be making an altar call. That altar call is to separate countrywide those who now reject this constitution as the source of their misery. This basis of union is also your source of misery. They will be told what to do to stand on one side. Everybody else will be counted as being on the side of the enemy that imposed this constitution, that is enforcing this constitution on all of us. Once that altar call is made, then the country will see the number of people who have rejected this bad arrangement in comparison with those who are trying to enforce it against everybody. That is the logjam that will have to be resolved by transition. There will be no other way. And let me say it on behalf of Ninas just one more time. The choices available to everybody now is either, including the government, either we calmly surrender to this superior plan that accommodates everybody. Because we have not asked those in government house to go to die. We are saying, come so that we can go to transition. Like South Africa went to transition in 1990 to resolve the apartheid quagmire, the apartheid bind. Let us know that either we accept to go and solve the problem now, or that is surrender unconditionally to this superior plan, this comprehensive plan, or we get ready for comprehensive defeat. That crowd of people we are throwing, there was a governor that brought bread on the floor of a warehouse, and people were falling on top of one another to take as many. Maybe the people came in before they made the arrangement for how to share it. They saw it and came in and began to fight over it. You saw people who were being flogged in Lagos for small loaves of bread. You saw people who were in market who dropped. Saw the woman that had a child that dropped, fainted, hadn't eaten for 3 days. You saw how that child was. These are the kind of people you are governing, and you are taking 30 billion to go and buy food. What? All that has come to an end. We either go to solve this problem, or it will come upon us because you have remained adamant and unthinking.
Thank you for listening. Our next speaker actually needs no introduction, but I will still give one anyway. Please welcome the amazing Nina spokesperson, Mr. Tony Nadi, who will enlighten us on the British amalgamation of 1914, 1967 to 1970 genocidal war, and the 1979 and 1999 constitution unified Nigeria but did not unite Nigeria. Sir, please, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. And welcome everybody to another town hall. The object of, there's this birthday banquet of Yakubu Gowon at 90. Everybody gather. Then this fellow who doesn't seem to understand anything at all, called P2B, going to poke his hands into the eyes of a hurting people. I believe that the global Igbo backlash against him will begin to tell him that there's an unfinished business about the unity that they are pretending we have. It was because he was trying to present himself as that detribalized Igbo man that doesn't hold any grudges against those who had offended everybody. Just sheer stupidity. sheer stupidity. If stupidity has any content, any meaning, it is in P2B going to assault the sensibilities of a people that are still bleeding. Many may have thought that the war ended in 1970. No, it only went into another phase, because that was the point at which I'm giving us a backdrop to interpreting two words to our people: unifying Nigeria and uniting Nigeria. And we're looking at 3 periods. At the foundation in 1914, yes, by amalgamation, by British fight of amalgamation, the territories that the world calls Nigeria today got unified. But the peoples of Nigeria were not united. There was no attempt to unite them. So they were bundled into that arrangement with no consultation, and booby traps were deliberately set by the British to keep them at each other's throats as a strategy that is known as a divide to conquer, divide and rule. Everywhere you look. And so those who are pretending that Nigeria is now united, those who are saying, even in the election, all of the candidates talked about what they were going to do to unite everybody. They don't know the difference between unification and uniting. But it all sounds like unity in their ear. And so we say in 1940, by the amalgamation of 1914, yes, the Northern Protectorate and the Southern Protectorate were unified. But the peoples of Nigeria, who are supposed to be in that Nigerian union, were never united. And so it was cat and mouse, day and night. We're in the 110th year of that first marriage. And if we go back to the telegram, the cablegram of 1913, by which the Secretary for the Colonies of the time, Harcourt, was trying to tell everybody what they were going to do in January of 1914, he described it as a marriage, as a betrothal of the Southern Protectorate to the North. And to this date, it hasn't changed. And we're still living in the misery of having been betrothed to a wicked suitor, a wicked husband. And in 1960, by the time the British will leave, they simply handed us over to that caliphate, to the Fulani. If anybody is in doubt, I will read out from that cablegram of December of 1913. The way Harcourt, who is who was the secretary to the colonies, meaning that the immediate person that Lugard, who was in Nigeria, the immediate person he reports to back in England is that secretary for the colonies. Somebody else in India, somebody else in all the other places they were governing at the time, everybody reporting to that secretary for the colonies. He's their principal in London. It's through him the government in the British government relates to all of those colonies. And so listen to the excerpt from that cablegram. Harcourt says, that's the one after whom Port Harcourt is named. He says, I quote, "We have released northern Nigeria from the leading strings of the treasury. The promising and well-conducted youth is now on an allowance of his own and is about to effect an alliance with a southern lady of means. I have issued the special license, and Sir Frederick Lugard will perform the ceremony. May the union be fruitful and the couple constant." End of quote. Secretary to the colonies, Lord Harcourt, boss of Frederick Lugard, referring to the important purpose of the annexation of the then Protectorate of Southern Nigeria to the then Protectorate of Northern Nigeria, cablegram of December the 1st, 1913. Now, you could see that it's like bringing a child of, because all the meetings from after the 1885 Berlin Conference, to tell you how things progressed. You remember they had come as a trading partner, signing trading treaties with the existing kingdoms of the time, and then suddenly turning it into protection treaties by which they swindled those kingdoms of their sovereignties. And then right after the Berlin Conference of 1885, by which they partitioned Africa amongst the European powers of the time, these territories fell into the hands of, were allotted to Britain. And so they began immediately working their way for how to transform those trading treaties and protection treaties into a country that they will then manage. Otherwise, up to that point, it was kingdoms and all kinds of colonies, and there was the Lagos colony, there was Oil Rivers, protectorate, and all kinds of names they called. Then by the time they got dealing with the northern side, they encountered the caliphate, and they began to bring together like two robbery gangs what they had gathered from each of the sides. The caliphate having come from the 1804 jihad of Madu, what was his name? Uthman Dan Fodio. And so that we don't lose track of this question of how we came into that unity, that geographical expression that is called Nigeria. That's how Awolowo described that question of no union, no discussion, no agreement to be. That's what Awolowo was talking about. Yes, that there's a land, a vast territory running from Sokoto to Maiduguri, going all the way to Port Harcourt and coming back to Lagos. That's, if you go up in the sky, it is one big estate, one big parcel of land. Yes, on the world map, it is labeled Nigeria. But that's just a mere geographical expression, because Nigeria is supposed to be a union of peoples who could have been countries of their own, but who are now in one political union called Nigeria. It is that absence of discussion and agreement to be in union that is at issue. We have heard from the horse's mouth, Lugard, Harcourt, who presided over, he said he has licensed that forceful joining together. Of course, when in January of 1914, the amalgamation was announced, there were protests in Lagos, because that's where you had Southerners who had education at that point, realizing that they've been annexed to the Northern Protectorate without any form of discussions. So there were protests. Meanwhile, because a German newspaper had on the 26th of December in 2013 leaked the information they had about the amalgamation that would be announced on the 1st of January in 1914 by Britain. And so people began to scratch their head, but it was already too late. You know, Christmas was there. Everybody who you could have been going to ask to join you, the few people that had education at the time, everybody was in their own Christmas. And so there was protest in Lagos, which was quickly put down. But there were Dobas. There was Doba in Sokoto and Zungeru. That is, the caliphate were rejoicing that the southern lady of Minsk had been betrothed to them. So while one side was protesting the amalgamation, I'm talking about 1 week after, one side was protesting the amalgamation in the south, the other side was celebrating it in the highest possible form of celebration, which they call Doba. I'm sure some of us have seen those horse parades. That's the biggest form of celebration you find in the caliphate flank. And so we come down to the night to let you know that it's a continuous, it's one design that is still ongoing, because that is what we have to resolve now. We chose those 3 periods to show you that at every point in time, there was a deliberate design to hold people by force into this union. And that all the pretenses that we have been united are just pretenses. What had happened over and over was that we were unified by force. And at times, subterfuge in terms of pretense. In terms of saying one thing that is a lie and marketing it to be the basis of so many other things. But it's a lie at the foundation that you agreed. In 1960, October, I'm sure you heard about the Ahmadu Bello mission statement and battle script. It was at the point of departure of the British, bearing in mind that betrothal of 1914 of the Southern Lady of Means to the well-behaved North. This Grand Master was leaving, and he had made arrangements, the British had made arrangements that tied us leg and hand, blindfolded us, and handed us over to that caliphate. Which was why Ahmadu Bello and his party that did not win any election became coronated with power. He came a distant third in that election of independence. Awolowo, that was convinced he had won, went to court, they threw him out, he tried to go by other means, they bundled him in and put him in prison, suspended the Constitution of Western Region, May 29, 1962, and divided his kingdom. All these people talking about Midwest, that was a democratic process. No. Parliaments don't make constitutions. It was by British manipulation and the caliphate support for that manipulation that they got their majority, they got their people in because there was Willings Commission in 1957-58. Why didn't they grant them that autonomy at the time? Because they all wanted that autonomy. The minorities of the East, the West, and the North. The minorities of the West are this Edo Delta that became Midwestern region. They all went before Willings Commission seeking to be separated from the Yoruba majority. The ones in the North, Joseph Tucker and the Middle Belt, seeking to be separated from the Caliphate North. The ones in the minority of the East, the Ijaw and the rest of them, seeking to be separated from the Igbo majority East. They were looking for autonomy. The British did not grant them. They left them in the belly of these majorities. It was in that mischief of wanting to put down Awolowo sufficiently to proceed with other sides in terms of conquest that resulted in that, parliamentary gerrymandering, shifting of boundaries, and calling the Midwest, granting them that autonomy from that process. And so, to let you know the basis upon which these things were proceeding, we go back to what Ahmadu Bello declared to his lieutenants, which is what has become the constitution, the unitary constitution we are battling with right now. This is how that constitution came. The British were leaving. Ahmadu Bello turned to his the boys he had groomed to say to them that, I'm quoting again, the new nation called Nigeria should be an estate of our great-grandfather Uthman Dan Fodio. We must ruthlessly prevent a change of power. We use the minorities of the North as willing tools and the South as a conquered territory, and never allow them to rule over us, never allow them to have control over their future. End of quote. Premier of Northern Region, Ahmadu Bello, celebrating the grand bequest by the British Crown in the week of independence. Of course, reported by the Parrot newspaper of the time on the 12th of October, 1960. This is just 1 week into the independence. The South was celebrating because then the British put Azikiwe in front. Oh, ceremonial president and all of that. The South was popping champagne, thinking that the British had gone. But Ahmadu Bello and his lieutenants were celebrating something else. That this country must be an estate of their great-grandfather Uthman Dan Fodio that came on conquest, that they must ruthlessly prevent a change of power. It was that ruthless prevention of change of power that put Awolowo in prison. It was that ruthless prevention of change of power that became the commotion of 1966 that eventually degenerated into a war. It was that ruthlessness that attended the prosecution of that war, in which this number of people got killed. By Gowon's account, he said they had to kill 5 million people. Of course, the conservative estimates had been around 3.5 million. But how do you quantify in that kind of a setting? Who was there to document everyone? Who was there to see children whose parents will go out in one moment and a bomb clears them all out from wherever they went, maybe market. Bombs were going off in marketplaces, dropped from the air. And then those children, everybody will run helter-skelter to wherever they end up. Who will be there to know how many they were? Because these bombs were being, for 3 years, you were dropping bombs indiscriminately. You blocked the air, land, and sea access to the place. And let me inform us, this Bakassi that was lost was part of those who are wondering why the East are so incensed against this genocide general called Yakubu Gowon. This Bakassi that has now exposed Nigeria to all manners of danger from that flank was given out by Yakubu Gowon under the table to Cameroon of the time to allow the federal forces to enter Eastern region from that international border. So it was a deal in the dark that his co-genocide general Obasanjo had to now hand over to Cameroon under the one they describe as Green Tree Agreement. The one in which you saw the train terror attack and the demand of the terrorists when they attacked the train between Abuja and Kaduna. Their demand, that demand, they say the government knew what it was, that is not money. The Wodo, I'm sure you must have heard about the Wodo. These people rented, these people we call Fulani herdsmen today. Those same people that come in to butcher people, when they kill people, some of us who know certain details, every time they kill, we can tell you that they were the ones who killed these ones. All those times they were rampaging Southern Kaduna and Plateau and all of those. Those who do not know will not know what to look out for. But those in Eastern Nigeria, in the Biafra of the time, can tell you every time those people kill, because there are things they do. And so they were promised the lands. They were brought from outside this same place Buhari brought them back from. So there's an unspoken discussion going on between them. You rented us to come to help you to defeat Biafra. I'm sure you had it in that period the coup happened in Niger Republic. The people are saying, you rented us to come to kill for you. We've killed and we delivered. You defeated the people. Where's the land? It was to deliver that land as promised to Fulani from everywhere they had rented them that made Buhari contest election 4 times. That was why he was crying when he looked like he wasn't going to make it. And that's why it became a terrible disaster that a Bola Tinubu, who, in pursuit of his own personal political growth, political ambition, he wanted to be president, and the only pathway he could immediately see was to bring in this unmarketable Buhari, coronate him, shepherd him through 8 years, and stand on his head to jump in and become president. Okay, Tinubu has become president. Then what? Can we see the disasters and calamities all over the place? Because the Nigeria he's governing is sitting on the pool of blood of millions of people from the East. And what was the issue? The oil of the East was the only thing that the British wanted. That was what became war, to seize that oil field. Nigeria is still living off it to this date. And so, what was the outcome of that whole war? They had conquered, they had confiscated the sovereignty of Eastern Nigeria because they broke the 4 regions of the time. They had already weakened the Western region. They broke the 4 regions of the time into 12 states. Of course, because there was no middle belt that ever governed itself, those 12 states were, the numbers that fell, it was always either 6 northern states or 19 northern states, whatever be their number, they were under the hegemony of that caliphate. One north. Of course, that was what was sold to them. They were told that the south were demons. Don't go near them. Don't mix up with them. They're infidels and all kinds of nonsense talk. And so, from the conclusion of that war, the Murtala Mohammed that led the counter coup, killing Ironsi and the military officers from the Igbo officers, and then going into town to massacre the Igbo. The killings began in the first phase as just slaughter them because we're no longer in union with them. Araba, that operation they launched on the July 29 of 1966 was to declare their independence, their secession from the Nigeria that had failed. That was what Murtala Mohammed and co. Did, which threw up Gowon as the one who will be, because the British then intervened. The British stopped them from seceding. The British got them to announce to stay back, and in fact, they managed the crisis in the direction that became war, so that they could beat down the East and become the owners of the oil and gas assets of the place. And in order to weaken the East, they cut out the international, the area that borders with Cameroon. They call it Southeastern State, which is now the Cross River and Akwa Ibom. They cut the area that abutted the Atlantic Ocean, which is they call River State at the time, current Rivers and Bayelsa State. So the little that was left now became landlocked inside. That's the one they called it East Central State at the time, which have been split into 5 now of Imo, Anambra, Ebonyi, Abia, and Enugu State. All because they wanted to lock in that territory. That's that East Central State that they created on the 27th of May in 1967 as they broke the eastern region of that time is what Buhari was mocking as dot in circle. That is to say, where do you want to go? We encircle you 360 degrees. Wherever you turn, you must encounter people who are loyal to us. So you go nowhere. You heard him on Al Jazeera talking trash. And so when they had done all their killings and they confiscated by decree all of the economic assets they could identify and all the powers that the regions used to have, these 68 items of exclusive list were the powers and assets they confiscated from the regions that were in charge of their sovereignties up to the point of that fracturing. It was in that fracturing the regions that the federal government became the owners of their assets. They just took over the assets progressively and continue to break down the unit so that none can challenge the omnipotent and almighty center. That's how we arrived at 36 states. And they went beyond that to try to weaken even those states so that there will be no discussion that could ever lead to any form of challenge. They smuggled local government. That is, how can in a federation, the federal government now begin to split the states into units that they want to manage directly now by saying, we give you allocation straight. Whose money is being shared in that Abuja? That they will now come and begin to give like in an estate. You come to a situation where somebody, you had your house, you had your land, you were living your life. Suddenly, people came and fenced that neighborhood without talking to you. Suddenly, they say you are now part of this estate. And then progressively, they say the union office that was supposed to be managing that estate are now the owners of all the plots, all the lands. That was how they took over the economic assets and the sovereign assets, the powers to work those assets from those regions. It was those things they took over from those 3 federating regions that became 4 that now form these 68 items of exclusive list. So at a point the Federation of Nigeria had collapsed, an omnipotent federal government emerges, led by that Lieutenant Colonel Gowon, leading to all the altercations that became war, even after agreeing in Aburi not to go that route. And today somebody is stupid enough to come to say, oh, we congratulate you because he turns 90, because you want to be president. It is an insult. I'll be surprised if he's not compelled to apologize to the Igbo. I'll be very, very surprised. And even if others keep quiet, Peter Obi will have to apologize for that stupidity. If he doesn't, he will then face the communal frown of the Igbo, global communal frown of the Igbo, for assaulting our collective sensibility on this subject, in which Nigeria has to date not reversed the policies by which they now confiscated what was left of our sovereignty in that part, of our economic assets in that part, of our everything in that part. Let us find out whether the Biafran currency that they asked people to submit and which had value up to the last day of that war, it was warehoused and later distributed to other people to buy off Igbo assets, the one they call indigenization decrees. the land, the houses, the properties they confiscated in the name of abandoned property were redistributed. Unfortunately, some of our brethren who didn't see what was going on from Britain and the Caliphate and the rest of the alliance, they joined. Oh, let's beat down the Igbo. A decree was made that the owners of those properties, because some neighbors wanted to return they were happy to see their neighbors before the war come back to Port Harcourt. They returned they were trying to guard the houses to get them resettled in it. A decree was then made that the owners of those houses, the banks were forbidden from lending money to the owners of those houses against those properties, meaning that there will be no money to start rebuilding. They then gave £20, not per head. Only those who had accounts. How many people had accounts in the townships before that 66? Only those who had accounts in 1965 were given £20, just £20. And because the money you were returning was supposed to be taken to bank from which you were given the Nigerian pound, people contributed all their Biafran pounds in the towns and villages to hand over to their relations or whoever they could trust with their money to take to bank. No announcement was made. Most of the people that took those that collected those monies from their kinsmen in those villages across eastern Nigeria, they became fraudsters in the eyes of their community. I brought 200,000 Biafran pounds to you. The other man brought 500,000. The other one brought 2 million Biafran pounds. We wrote it all out and gave to you to take to town, so that you can come back with whatever they convert it to, because it ceased to be legal tender by the decree of Nigeria. And then you went with all those millions and you were given £20. Many of them got killed because no announcement was made. So it was, Okonkwo, you've come with that your township, Wayo. Across several families in Igbo land, across several communities in Igbo land. And when because the government did not make any announcement of it, it was just you coming if you found the court, because they didn't even want to listen to anything. Many of them got killed. Many of them ran away. They couldn't come because government did not say anything. Then the next thing, this David Mark, who is still alive, they created a committee to charge the Igbo out of their houses in Port Harcourt. David Bonaventure Mark was the head of that task force that threw them out of those houses before they shared it out to these same people who cannot tell whether they're Igbo or not to this date. So these are the kind of foundations upon which this place was built. And then they proceeded all the way to having done all these expropriations. By 1975, the same Murtala Mohammed, on the same date, in 66, July 29, when they began their decapitation of Igbo, he toppled Gawan and became the head. And the first task he went into was to now codify all of what they had gotten by decree, by brigandage from that 67. So that unitary arrangement they had imposed was now processed into a draft constitution. That was the task Nwabweze and Rotimi Williams performed for them, that Obasanjo perfected for them. Head slave, Olusegun Obasanjo. And so what came out as 1979 constitution was commissioned by way of draft in November of 1975 by Murtala Mohammed, who was the head of the military wing of the Caliphate. Otherwise, tell me why he was the one that led the charge in 66 and led the charge in 75 to take over that constitution that came through that process. Was the full implementation of that Ahmadu Bello's battle script of 1960. make a map of Nigeria, put all of the people who did one thing or the other to create this monster we have now. Put them on that map, and you will see where Gowon belongs. You will see where Murtala falls in his Kano. They may have come from somewhere, but that's where they settled, just like Abacha. Abacha is Kano, but they lived in Kano. So he was a Kano person. That's how Nigeria dealt with him. I mean, Murtala Mohammed, that was why he was buried. At the end of the day. So you put all the principal actors on the map of Nigeria. You will then see the inheritors from the caliphate side, the Buharis of this world, the Yaraduas of this world. I'm talking about the general now. You remember there was one general that Boko Haram shot in his residence in Maiduguri in those days. Those are the kind of people. So they come, you look at that map that is broken into four, you see them there. Then you come to the middle belt, you see the Gowons, you see the Dajumas, you see the Usenis, you see the Garbas, Bamayi, brothers. So all such, look at where they are in the middle belt. Then the south as the conquered territory. And therefore, everything Obasanjo did for them was not of his own power. It was because he was, the slave master always appoints a head slave that enforces his will among the slaves, spying for him, enforcing all kinds of evil. That's the role Obasanjo had played for them. And so, as head slave, he processed the wish of that caliphate, as expressed by Murtala Mohammed, into what became the 1979 Constitution. Back to the subject of the day. You go to the preamble to that 1979 Constitution. It's exactly a replica of what we have in 99. We, the people, having formally and solemnly resolved to live in unity forever, do hereby make and give unto ourselves the following Constitution. In a situation where it was by decree that Obasanjo enacted what he enacted, and that what the Constituent Assembly had, deliberated even after the initial draft that came from Murtala's commission, the Constituent Assembly that was convened in 1977, Murtala Mohammed had been killed by his confederates in 1976, and so the draft that had been made out for him was what the caliphate handed to Obasanjo to say, you must process this unadulterated to become constitution. And when you conduct the election, one of us, a Fulani, must become president. That was how Shagari became president. He didn't win no election. I'm sure he had about 12 to 13. And so the point of the day is that this 1979 Constitution was not a product of the people. It was no different from the amalgamation because it was by military fiat, dictated by the caliphate. So it unified Nigeria into 19 states because Murtala Mohammed had added to the 12 that were there before. It unified 19 states, defined everything, but there was no discussion amongst the people that were going to federate. It was now state and another state that were created by decree. So it wasn't even your project. And then they carried it forward in 1999. The story of 99 is too well known to bear any kind of reputation because by providence, in their hurry to get away with their loot, Absalom Abaka recruited Abacha's chief legal advisor called Awalu Yadudu. Some may say he's a professor. If you insist on calling him professor, I'll then say quota Professor Awalu Yadudu. Abacha's chief legal advisor was the one who midwifed the emergence of that 1979 Constitution as 1999. Just adding all the states they had created because they had gone from 19 to 36 eventually. Bangladesh created some, Abacha created others. And that was how it was. It was in between, in that darkness, that they also loaded the local governments that they just sat in their offices and carved out 774 in all, loading the majority of it to people who do not bring a dime to the table. You saw what the Supreme Court tried to do the other time. And many of us are thinking that Tinubu is in charge of anything. These are all the covenants he had with them. You look at some of the things that happened in the military. You look at some of the things that happened through the courts. These are the covenants he had with them to hand over our local communities to them. That's part of what Tinubu covenanted with the caliphate as condition for coronating him in an election he didn't win. And P2B is loafing all over the place. So something they could not do by National Assembly, because people were now aware, people were now conscious of the games they were playing. They are trying to use the Supreme Court to rewrite the Constitution, because that, so those amendments, those parts of the Constitution that define those boundaries they impose, requires 4/5 majority to change. How are you going to raise 4/5 majority? And so they couldn't succeed through National Assembly. They now went in the direction of using the Supreme Court. And so we have discussed 3 rounds of unifying Nigeria without uniting. That uniting is where you identify the owners of the sovereignty across this vast territory. Yoruba land is not in dispute. You know the Yoruba people occupying Yoruba land. They could be country of their own, 60 million people today, if Nigeria were to fail. Why will Yoruba not be consulted? Why will it not be the decision of the Yoruba to be in union with the Igbo, to be in union with the Tiv or with the Fulani? That is what is at issue. That is what has to be resolved now. That is what nobody has been able to raise. Even the people that went to Lancaster House and who did the fight for independence, the ones who were still alive and active at the time we set up this process, they recognized that they did not quite understand the concept of sovereignty in terms of making sure that it is the owners of the lands, the indigenous, that's the people the distinct ethnic nationalities that had specific ancestral lands, who had to decide, who had to be the ones committing their sovereignty. They didn't understand it to that point. So they were satisfied that the British, that the foreigners have gone. Somehow people, all those boundaries, eastern region, western region, and then subsequently 12 states and 19 states and 36 states, everything was just flying in the air. It was when we came that we sat them down with our knowledge of jurisprudence, broke it down. And they say, hey, no wonder we were swindled in 1960. We didn't know this. And so we began to organize to identify the owners of the sovereignty: small Isoko, small Ishekiri, small Ogoni, medium Urobo, medium Ijo, medium Tiv, big Yoruba, big Igbo, big Hausa. We said, look, every land in Nigeria is owned by one group or the other. There's no loose end in that. Everybody, every single inch belongs to people you can identify. The British avoided them, sidestepped them in arriving at 1914. So they were unified by fiat, by decree. The process that went from 1967, culminating in 1979, again included all of them, unified them into the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But they were not united, because it is only by going to do that thing you saw in that preamble that they can be united. It will be of their own volition. They will be the ones submitting their land and their people, that is their sovereignty, in self-determination. Self-determination meaning that they were the ones who decided. And if you want to know what they decided, go back to that preamble. What do you see there? We, the Yoruba of Nigeria, having firmly and solemnly resolved with the Tiv, the Igbo, the Ijo, to be one political union that will not divide in the near future, do hereby make and give unto ourselves the following constitution. Until that statement becomes true, because there has been a discussion and a negotiation, it is that discussion and negotiation that they are running away from. That's why they are looking for the Appian way. They bring Olisabakoba to come and tell them rubbish. They bring Emeka Nyoko to come and give them another route. They bring Efekponda to come and draft constitution and all kinds of nonsense. But we have them, we have that constitution in a chokehold. Our signature cannot continue to sit on a document we did not make that will now become titled document, that has become titled document in the hands of an enemy that is determined to execute all of us. That's what unitary Nigeria has been. A monster that feeds on the blood of the constituents. But it is our signature that is sitting there and sustaining it. The fact of union, that we are now in union, is on account of the false claim that we the people, we the Ogoni, we the Igbo, we the Yoruba. So we say we never met. At the time we set up this process, some of us may not know the gravity of what has happened, but the international community knows, because we had to go to inform them, all the way to the UN Security Council, all the way to places of decision making across Washington. We went to the nationalities. We didn't leave any side out, including the Fulani that are causing the mayhem. We set up a meeting of the owners of Nigeria. That's what came out as Pronaco. It was a 20-year plan. We knew it took more than 250 years to lock us down from the time the British, even before the British came, from the time Ahmadu Bello and co, Danfodi and co jumped into Gober in 1804. Of course, the Portuguese had come and gone, and so everybody was coming to poke, but eventually it was what Uthman Danfodio was doing from that flank and what the British began to do in the early 19th century that became, the colonization that we found ourselves in after Berlin Conference. And so, that confiscation of our lands and the conscription of our peoples into a union that was not to be discussed or defined or negotiated. They've escaped 3 rounds. The one the British did in 1914, the one Murtala Mohammed and his co-travelers, aided by Gowon and Obasanjo, who concluded it for them in 1979, and the one Absalam Abaka, aided by Awalu Yadudu, did in 1999. And so, the reason we're breaking these things down in this manner is for all of those who are fed up with what Nigeria is dishing out to them, whether they're killing you in the Middle Belt, or they seize your oil and gas in Ijo land, or they're threatening you in Yoruba land, or imposing people who are ruining your lives as governors, because it is that constitution that enables all those things. You can't do your road, you can't elect who will govern you. You can't even decide whether you want to be in union with anybody, because the people who owe it a duty of faith, the ones who impose Sharia in their own space, and who owe it a duty of faith to kill others as infidel. You put my signature on a document I had nothing to do with, I've never seen or heard about. You put my signature there to say I'm the one that agreed to be in union with a Buhari that whose allegiance is with his own faith and his own feudal neighborhood. So we are in a union of master and servant that does not respect the sanctity of life because of Sharia. So it has to be my decision to be in union with them. And the remedy available to all of those who are crying across the length of breadth of Nigeria is called self-determination. Self-determination is an incident of your sovereignty. Your sovereignty is your sovereignty. That is the ultimate right to control that ancestral land. That is what is called sovereignty. You have the highest say. Nobody can come to tell you anything there. So that right to have that highest say is what is called self-determination. So if you are going to be in union, it has to be you standing on your land, your big Ijo land, your small Ogoni land, your small Isoko land, the big Yoruba land. It must be Yoruba people standing in Yoruba land. as the owners of the sovereignty that Yoruba land represents, unburdened by Nigeria, uninhibited by Nigeria. The same thing, Ijaw people standing on Ijaw land, the ancestral space. Now federating, negotiating to be in one political union with others. That is what has to happen. And if it's not happening soon enough, the reason we went so slowly across these many years was that we had to talk to everybody. We had to get those who were not on speaking terms to begin to speak to themselves and make a map of their own territory to create internal cohesion. Because the British and the Caliphate set them up one against the other. You needed to see the number of wars that the Tiv and the Jukun were fighting. Today, Theophilus Danjuma is one running helter-skelter to see how the killings in Tivland can stop. But before then, it was Jukun and Tiv day and night. Igbo should not be allowed to come near Ogoni land. Kensaruwa eventually lost his life to the people who rallied him into that wickedness. Abacha slept on the same camp beds with Kensaruwa throughout that period of the war. They made him administrator of Boni province. Go and check what the territory that they called Boni in that eastern region. Go and check. More than the states there today. And then when his eyes began to open and he began to talk about what right Ogoni will have and what right others will not have, he became the enemy, and they framed him, hung him, and melted his body with acid. The fellow that did it, his name is Dauda Komo, Lieutenant Colonel. Search around, you will find him. These are the kind of monsters that gather to dance and wine, to celebrate their great general, Yakubu Gowon. And so, by this meeting of today, we're informing ourselves that the issue, that joint jailbreak that is building up to happen, because the Nigeria defined by that constitution, to the extent that that constitution is a fraud, and we have shown it to be a fraud to those who are the victims of that fraud. That's the constituent components of Nigeria, the owners of the sovereignties that are confiscated and conscripted. That title deed, which is a forgery and a fraud, can no longer be basis of any union. As of today, we do not have any union. I'm sure you heard Ayadebanjo shouting it in Lagos at the Colombo Come of Emeka Anyoku. I'm sure you had people saying it on TV. You had Kingsley Moghalu saying it. We have no union. You had Professor Akinwale saying, we have no project. Let us go and agree. You had Dixon, Senator Sirake Dixon, former governor of Bayelsa. You had him saying it on Arise TV, that the constitution is a fraud. We have no union. And so, if sanity does not return in good time, if a process is not initiated soon enough to get these constituent components of Nigeria, the owners of this sovereignty, to go into a process that will become union, if they agree to be in, which was what Bola was telling them needed to be done all the while the campaign was for Sovereign National Conference. Say, can we go and settle two questions? One, whether we want to be in union. I'm sure you heard when Olusegun was, parroting it in his own language, in the way he chose to put it, because he will say it and then go begin to another, that he should go and write constitution that National Assembly will write and hand out to us. Criminals all over the place. And so, if they do not wake up in time, and you saw Tinubu coming back to say, oh, youth, National Youth Conference, is it only youth that is suffering from loss of sovereignty? That will be calling them to, what of the other, who would then speak for all the other people? Is it youth that is fighting all the nationalities that are fed up with Nigeria? And so, all of that will be dead on arrival. Ninas is waiting for them to come out from their hiding, all of the way they came out these 5 times of Abakoba and Fagbonda and Patriot of Meka Anyoko and all of what they've managed, Benjamin Kalu, we waited for them to come and we decapitated what they were bringing. Have you seen any of them running their mouth? Or do you think that the constitution has now recovered and they are moving on? So where we are now is that transition is the last lifeline to take this matter through an orderly process. Otherwise, unilateral actions are loading. We saw what happened in Port Harcourt. Abuja thought they could prevail, but the governor there had counsel. He had superior information on what to do. And you had him tell the IG to dress back. You think it will stop with local government? No. Somebody will soon realize that that constitution cannot be basis of the economic access being detained by people who hold it as concession or a block. Who told you that my land will become your land? Because somebody wrote a decree some time ago, the land is still there, my people are still there. Then you forge a document that says I submitted it. That's what we're dealing with. Those who do not understand it will be victims of it, including our own brethren who refuse to listen. This type that goes to congratulate the murderers of his people, that says the constitution is not the problem. You can imagine the gravity of what we're discussing. And Peter Obi says constitution is not the problem. What then is the problem? What then is the problem other than that? Because it is that constitution that imposed this bad leadership we have. It's the constitution that imposed the corruption we have. It's the constitution that imposed the impunity we have. We've talked on those sections that are specifically responsible for everything. Look at petrol today. They say subsidy. How did we come into subsidy? Refineries are on the exclusive list. How did we come into insecurity? Arms and ammunition on the exclusive list. And you think that that discussion can wait for another day? And you are buying form and organizing to go and contest the election? The owners of the sovereignty will the victims of unitary Nigeria are going to get into a fight with the proprietors and subscribers of that unitary Nigeria. That's this unitary constitution, this forgery. Those who gather to swear to defend and uphold it, those who are planning to go and contest the election under it so that when they win, they again swear and then keep it for another 4 years, and another 4 years, and another 4 years. We've gone through it 7 times. I believe that this hunger that is visiting every household, this naira that is melting in every pocket, is just some of the campaign assistance that the forces of heaven has extended to us, so that those who refuse to listen will have urgent need to seek redemption. We'll continue in what we're doing. If they listen, they do the one thing we ask them to do, to declare that they will not go to another election under that constitution that makes them. It is that constitution that is killing them. If they choose, we have 3 years to 2027 from now. If they decide to go and perish, we're not going to try to stop them. We told them ahead of 2015, even from 2011. After 2007 that we went to court, we began to tell them, let's not go, let's not go. Oh, no. It's our turn. They went. We began from that 2011 to say, please, go and check it. June 30th of 2011, after the election and the swearing in on May 29 in 2011, we went telling them, let us not allow this constitution to be basis of another election in 2015. Did they listen? No. It's our kinsman. Of course, Buhari happened to them, and they thought they had seen everything bad. As 2023 was coming, because they had suffered up to 19, as 23 was coming, by then we had finished what we had to do in the international circuit. Let us stop this journey before. If we go to this election, whatever you see, they were arguing. They thought they had everything under control. Today, the truth is emerging very loudly from them. And it's just the beginning. So the choice is there to be made now. Whether they want to go and renew anybody who is talking about going to election in 2027 under this constitution is only asking Tinubu to carry on, because all the institutions that will manage that election, the police, you see the head of the IG, he has the IG, he has the judiciary up to Supreme Court, the Kekerekun that was part of the Supreme Court panel that presided over what we saw, that headed the very panel that coronated Hope Uzodinma in Owerri, is now the paragon of integrity that is going to clear up everything that was bad. Sorry for those who are still that stupid. Or is it INEC that will change from what it is now? And if you are daft enough not to know that it is the exchange of money, the compromise that comes with the exchange of money, the bribery that happens, that will bring all these institutions to mess up the process the way you have seen, then that level of foolishness should consume such a person. Such people should not reproduce in any space. And so the man who has shared money with all these institutions, you are going to just come and he will conduct an election and he's running as candidate in that election. You saw Wike telling us what they have 8 years. You saw Babio confirming it. You saw what has happened to the two parties that are supposed to be working to defeat them, PDP and APC. All those things. Has Wike now not confessed when he said he will continue to be the trouble of Atiku and trouble of Obi? It is trouble of PDP and trouble of Labour Party. They are the ones orchestrating to decapitate the other two parties, which they have already succeeded in doing. So who is coming to remove these state captors in an election they will conduct with all those institutions, police, judiciary, INEC, and the treasury? Even the international, those who should have been who should have been coming to aid from outside. You know what they've signed up for them? Go and find out what they have pre-sold in terms of gas and oil. So anybody who is suggesting that there's a chance of going to election and winning them, we're going to have a fight. Our concern is not who will win. Our concern is the constitution by which the winner will govern. That is sufficient ground to hold those parties, because they all subscribe to that constitution. That is sufficient ground to start a fight with them to say, you can't drag us to another election. Show us the constitution by which you are going to change anything when you come. Because if you don't show us, you have to work with what you meet. You won't be able to change it. You have no power to change it. That should be sufficient basis for us to raise the bar. The victims of this unitarism are going to get on boxing ring with the proprietors of that unitarism. And that is all the political parties, the political merchants, the politicians, and their agents, church leaders, bar association, NGOs, media that blocks out this discussion. And so I think enough said. Nigeria had been unified by force of arms. That was what Akinwale was talking about, union at gunpoint. Union at gunpoint. Nigeria had been unified 1914, 1979, 1999, at gunpoint to this date. The owners of the sovereignties confiscated and conscripted into Nigeria will be led by Ninas into recovering their sovereignty. Either as a proper federation when they finish their negotiations and codify same, or as confederation in whatever formations they agree, or as independent units of successor sovereign states. Those are all the things. Those are the options that could emerge. But it will be by the self-determination of the owners of the sovereignty, ascertained by referendums. So those who are shouting, "Give us referendum, give us referendum," they don't know anything about anything. The process is already completed. We only need a critical mass that will say, we reject this constitution as basis of union. Therefore, we won't go to another election under it. And therefore, we must go into transition now. Otherwise, we're already out of the union because your document cannot be basis of holding us. We stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are grateful for your time and expertise. Your presentation was very informative, engaging, and thought-provoking. May the good Lord bless you and keep you for us in Jesus' name. Thank you once again. The floor is open for comments and questions. Please keep your questions or comments brief and relevant to the topic of the day. Any question, any comments from the audience? Kindly raise your hand or tap your mic twice. Any question, any comment? Alhaji Tajudeen, accept your invite. Speak for 1 minute, please. Yeah, Pa Olushola Ajilore is in the house. Welcome, Daddy. Alhaji Tajudeen, please, Pa Ajilore, accept the invite.
Am I on now?
Yes, Alhaji Tajudeen, you have the floor for
Thank
1
you
minute,
very much.
please.
Hold on. I'm just happy. I'm being reminded of what we saw, we witnessed that our spokesperson gave detailed about, especially this David Mark issue, and people now celebrating Gowon, the person that tumbled the process of Aburi. Ah, God will protect us and spare the life of Tony for us. He will be our forefront leader to deliver this continent and grant indigenous nationalities their sovereignty. I think that is just the contribution I want to make. I am pleased, I am satisfied tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that brief comment. Pa Olushola, please accept the invite. I've sent you an invite. Please accept it to, I don't know. Pa Ajilore, please accept the invite. Any more comments, any more questions? Pa Ajilore, please, if you can hear me, you can leave and come back. Maybe you are having issue. Yeah, okay. Pa Ajilore,
Yes.
please, you have the floor. Unmute your mic and speak, sir.
Okay. Good evening, the house.
Good.
Tony, like Tajudeen prayed, God will spare your life. We'll get somewhere. I think the problem we have is this deliberate decision to be illiterate. I, at my level, I cornered my pastor. Was it Sunday before the last? And I said, after the little bit of explanation I made just before election 2023, you have not allowed me to speak. Oh, okay, Baba, we will arrange. So I now call the chairman board of deacons and his deputy. I called them to my office, and for 2 hours, I was explaining these things that Tony's been sharing with us, and they were shocked because many people, these things are still new. I didn't stop there. I called the leader of the women wing of CAN in Kwara State. Got them through the same information. Called the leaders of the youth camp, gave them the same information, and I have asked them to go and work on it. I think at our different levels, if the main body of CAN is not going to listen to us, let us call the smaller arms, educate them. Uh, they promised me that they'll see what they can do about it, and that may be one way, because the many more people who know what is going on, the better for us. When they know, they will all cry out. Once more, Tony, as an elderly person, I declare that God will keep sparing your life, will grant you robust health, vitality, and you will see this by the grace of God in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you.
Amen. Any more questions? Any more comments? Okay, Pastor Desmond,
Hello,
you
good
have the
evening.
floor. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, our spokesperson, for your doggedness. And what I want to ask is if any of us have heard about this executive bill. They said the interregnum president is sending to the National Assembly that they want to go back to regional government. I don't know if it's what he wanted to use in deceiving them, because I don't see how regional government can be possible with this 1999 constitution, caliphate constitution in place. So I just want to ask if such a thing has been circulating in your own area as it is in here. I've seen such a circulation in some group WhatsApps. Thank you, ma.
We have responded to that. I'll resend it to you. It's just that you did not see it or you did not go through it in the platform. That is, events have overtaken that. There is nothing like that that will come to pass. Any more quick comments? Any more questions? Okay, in the absence of any more, okay. Mr. David, Reverend David Salami, please, you have the floor. Kindly unmute your mic, Reverend Salami.
Good evening.
Pastor Desmond, please mute your mic.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Well, first and foremost, we want to say thank you to our spokesperson and every member of this Nina's group. May God continue to strengthen us. Really, when I see Papa Jolo here tonight, it really gladdens my heart. Yes, I followed all that the spokesman laid out, and it's exciting. But that's what this comment that's been coming to my heart is the fact that when Tinubu, with what he's doing so far, is a man behaving in obduracy, thinking that, well, they have the power. But one thing I'm sure is this: at the end of the day, if he did not take his stand to declare that the constitution is the problem, is going to be consumed. All evidences abounds that we are treading the path of the 1964, 65, 66 thing, which consumed Akintola, who liaised with them, and then Ahmed went with it. So I just pray that Ninas will continue to really forge ahead with what we are doing. Don't let any of their things distract us. Once again, I thank the spokesperson for his fortitude and all of us who have been supporting him. May God, grant us the grace to see the end quickly. In Jesus' name, I yield the mic.
Amen. Mr. David, please, you have the floor.
Okay, good evening all.
Good evening.
Seriously is a privilege for me to be here. I've gone through all Mr. Tony has said, and seriously, we have a work to do. I just pray that these people will listen to all these things and take the rightful step. If not, we'll still be rotating on the same place, most especially we around the middle belt and the north. A lot of people are unaware that these things are existing and are just foolishly following these people without even having a second thought about it, thinking it's all for democracy. And nobody, we've never had any government that is coming that will like say this government is better than the previous one like that. Everything is just getting worse by the day. So the better for us to be enlightened about this thing, to change that 1999 constitution that has led us to where we are. I can't imagine people that are not even educated are the one ruling this country over and over again because of the foundation Danfodio has laid for them. So I want to commend Ninas for this wonderful job, wonderful eye opener, and will be well known about this. But as time goes on, we'll continue to let others know too. So I'm very happy. I'm very pleased to be here. And I pray that the good Lord will see us and strengthen us in this mission. Thank you. And God bless us all.
Amen. Mr. David, I've left the secretariat number at the chat box. Take the number and get in touch with us at the secretariat. Thank you. Any more
It's all right.
questions? Any more comments? Kindly mute your mic, Mr. David.
All right.
Any more questions? Any more
Yes,
comments?
yes, I
Okay,
want to.
Adoma, please, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I join others to thank our spokesperson for his doggedness and every time he takes time to explain things to us. Now, there is one impression I would like to correct. Please, we are not changing this constitution. We are rejecting the constitution and then go and sit down and discuss if we are coming into any kind of union or not. We are not changing it because some people will just think that we are campaigning for a change of constitution, which goes in line with all these politicians, what they are saying, that they will give us a constitution in 24 months. And some of them will just be recommending another one. And some will just be saying that there will be a vacuum. There is no vacuum. That's why we are talking about transition. We transit from one place to another. Paradigm shift. So please drop this idea that we are changing constitution. We are not changing anything. We have not even made anyone. So we are coming together to discuss if we are staying together or not. If and that will be done by through referendum, as he said. And after the referendum, then on what terms, if we say yes, we are coming together, we're staying together, on what terms? That is when the constitution will be planned. So, once again, I thank everybody and let us bear this in mind that we are not campaigning for any change of a constitution. We are saying that we want transition and we are rejecting this one because this one has been a thorn in our flesh. Thank you and God bless you all.
Thank you, Adoma, for that clarification. I don't see any hands raised anymore. So, Justina, please, you have the floor for key takeaways and closing remark. Kindly unmute your mic, Justina.
Good evening, everybody. I want to appreciate everybody, most especially our spokesperson, our father. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. God bless you for these factual, truthful realities that is being hidden from a lot of Nigerians. In fact, ignorance has been the strategy of keeping Nigeria like this. Because if you keep hearing these things, you feel like flying. You feel like changing the situation just in one hour. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate you. Our topic tonight was Crash of 1999 Constitution is the End of Unitary Nigeria. Sovereignty is the next thing. Now, tonight we talked about the objective of the constitutional force majeure, which has been achieved. Right now, as we are not in any union. Nigeria is not our project. And we have been made to understand, being part of this platform, that Nigeria is distinct people that were lumped together by wicked British amalgamation. And we as a people, we have a self-determination to fight for. We have our sovereignty to take, which is inalienable. We do not have to go and meet anybody to explain what we want. You know, recently some people from the West went to Britain and told them that they want to leave the Nigerian Union. And their response to them was, you would see their response that indeed Nigeria is their British criminal enterprise. Nigeria is a scam. This is the reason why history is obliterated in our curriculum. They do not want us to know about the true state of Nigeria, where what is happening to us, where we're coming from, and why Nigeria is like this. According to one young guy that said, if they explain Nigeria to you and you say you understand, that means you really did not hear what they said. These are factual truths that is being hidden from us. How can we use a document that we never made? And for years, since 1914 till date, we're suffering under it. Now, it is by taking down this constitution that we will take back Nigeria. We've seen all the sections that these people are not owing us. In fact, Nigeria right now is like, we're like customers. They are the businessmen. If they like, they hide oil. If they like, they take away the lights. They do anything they want to do to us, and we are their beck and call. We're always begging them and managing the situation. Someone was using an analogy, said Nigerians are like the frog. And when the heat is going on, as you increase the heat, the frog will be adjusting to the situation. If they can't, you push them to the wall, they push the wall back. That's how we have been managing the situation. And before you know it, the frog is not able to take the high temperature any longer. He tries to jump and he's not able to, and he dies. That's the point we are in now. Everybody is hungry. Naira has crashed. Again, it is really disheartening to see that those that destroyed Nigeria are being celebrated. Really painful. And how that an elderly man who is supposed to know the truth of his people is still part of them, celebrating them after genocide has been committed against your own. But I just want to rejoice that 24/7 Ninas will lead the people of Nigeria into discussion. That discussion is eminent. That discussion this time around, I know by his grace, cannot be altered. We should get ready. Our work, our task right now is to keep telling our people, keep teaching Nigerians. It's just that this period, people are so carried away by small money they dash around without waiting for another election. All of them, all the politicians, all of them, the election is their problem. I was reading where Tinubu has already paid 10 billion to political parties that they will not register more. INEC should not register more political parties. They just want to keep us in the status quo. People keep suffering, and they're just cutting away with all the wealth and sharing it amongst themselves. I just want to be triumphant that there is a Ninas that is their problem. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Justina, for that closing remark. Mr. Nadi, please, your final thoughts before the announcement to end today's meeting.
Okay. Thanks everybody for staying through and for coming at all. Uh, just to let you know, these things will be escalated in the days ahead. There are things that are being done in readiness for that escalation. We only want to keep doing what we're doing to make sure that more people get to know, because that escalation will catch them where they are. If they don't know, they may become victims of their own ignorance. And by the time you begin to see the quantum of information that have been disseminated, the efforts that have been made to reach them where they are, you then see that the question will be, what else should Ninas have done? There were times we put advertorials out, they won't read. All over the internet, they won't look at anything that doesn't bring, they spend all their time on content creators that don't want to address anything that affects them as a people. And then you see, or even on national TV, much as the media is trying to block all kinds of things, the sessions we had on mainstream media are sufficient if our people are asking, are looking for solution. The sessions we had with them that are documented, they're still on YouTube, on all the major platforms. There's nothing we have said in this meeting that cannot be found on channels TV, on AIT, on Silverbird, and all kinds of other, so many of them. We have more than 400 broadcasts. Somebody with the internet, everybody can be reached everywhere. But the problem is that people are just looking for what they will get for themselves. They don't care what happens to everybody else. And so when that escalation will happen, and I tell you solemnly, it will be sooner than you imagine. And you won't even believe that it's that same Ninas that we come and we see this kind of numbers that is doing what are people who agree with us are now in majority across the length and breadth of the country. The only thing is that if we are tempted to get them to begin to do certain things all this while, some of the things that had happened recently wouldn't have happened already, and it will have caused confusion. The ones who are waving Odua flag and Biafra flag, the ones who are thinking that they are their Peter Obi will be the replacement for Constitution if he becomes president. All of them will be in the imagination that they could have gotten. They will be fighting us with all their might. But now they have collapsed on their own. You saw the ones that were chasing Biafra. Right now, there's nothing other than just propaganda and terror, which the enemy is taking advantage of. Who is the unknown gunman now? If the enemy that came in genocide against you is the one that will now protect you from the madmen amongst you who are now killing people, of course, he will come in when they give the ultimatum, when they give their sit at home. That enemy will come into that space. Anybody who tries to go to anywhere, they will kill that person so that that place remains in confusion. If they want to stop that nonsense going on there, of course they know what they could have done. How can somebody sit in one corner of Finland and doing you a person of known address, and people are being killed in this number in that space, and you pretend you can't do anything about it? No, it is the people that wanted that it is in Nigeria that wants to lock down the East, destroy the East, that is presiding over all of that. We are sufficiently engaged to be able to say that if they want to end that trauma, they will have ended it a long time ago. But what of the Igbo people, the people who are living in that trauma? What are they doing? They were busy clapping and cheering for the ignorance and the scam and the deceit and the violence. The same thing in the Yoruba space. You saw them go to disgrace all of us in Downing Street. Whereas there's a pathway, something that won't take us 90 days to implement. If we bring even one quarter of the energy, if what we want is the recovery of our sovereignty, why will it be impossible for us to listen to a plan that can deliver it? And we're busy groping in the dark and searching through a forest of 1,000 demons. And so be assured, the one that talked about whether there's something going on in Abuja about regional autonomy is that same Fakponda stuff. Go and read whatever you saw. Read it again, and you see that they're just throwing it all around. They're buying time. People are thinking that something is happening somewhere instead of going to join the thing that is actually going to happen. And so they're buying time. They're under severe pressure because they see the difficulty of being able to get to the next election without sorting out this matter of constitution. And so as we progress, you will begin to hear about those things that will escalate the matter. The church people, the Pentecostal, all these big, general overseers, they are planning some event in some months' time. Of course, we're going to raise this question in a manner that is pointedly, put them on the spot in a way that they have to tell the people what they know and what they don't know about this discussion between darkness and light, between falsehood and truth. Why is the church not standing with the truth? Why is the church not standing with the salvation of their flock? You stand with the enemy that drag you corral them into PVC and election under a constitution that ruin their lives, and you share the benefit with it. So all kinds of things. We are waiting for them to pile up in their blunders, so that when we come upon them, there will be no hiding place for any of them. Whether it's the government that is now looking at youth conference, national conference for youth, as if the youth has a different economy or a different naira they spend or a different security they have to have that others will not be entitled to, or a different electricity that will come to them when the grid collapses. And so we have things, work is going on. Forget about the noise. They have no answer to anything. They've played all their cards trying to find happy and way. It hasn't worked. And so let us be sure in our minds that at the appropriate time, there are things we are waiting for. That escalation it has to be timed. It's not by our own power. The forces we are dealing with are monumental, but there's an almighty God. That's why it's called Almighty. He's higher and more powerful than all of those forces. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir, for that final thoughts. Justina, the floor is yours for the announcement to end today's section. Thank you. Hello, Justina. The floor is yours to end today's session.
Once again, good evening, everybody. I want to appreciate everyone for coming out for tonight's Clubhouse meeting in spite of your busy schedules. These are the announcements of our activities through the week. For us to work effectively and efficiently, we'll be having joint Clubhouse sections together at 7 p.m. Nigerian time on Tuesdays like this. And on Saturdays, we'll be having the Daughters of Truth on Facebook and YouTube at 5:30 p.m. Nigerian time. We are all encouraged in the immediate task of massively disseminating Nina's projectors to all our people. We are to sensitize them via the Nina's website, www.ninasvoice.org, and on YouTube, Nina's Voice on YouTube. We have over 400 videos, and we are encouraged to watch and share widely. For further information, you can call the Nina Secretariat on 0912 9931 The second number is 09064720016. At the count of 5, this Clubhouse section will be shut down. The countdown begins. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Goodbye and God bless you. Sleep tight, everybody.